What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going over Superman 2. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo Neves. I talk about movie, TV show, video game related, or just anything nerdy. You are in the right place. And like I said, today we are talking about Superman 2. So without further ado, let's get into the review. I've been kind of slacking on this Superman review series. I did the original Superman about almost a month ago. I did a review on that one, and my plan was to review every Superman leading up to the brand new James Gunn DCU Universe Superman movie, to review that one as well, of course, and rank it all together. Now, I have about a week to review an additional 5 movies, so we got to get these cranking out. But before I get started, let me let you know all my thoughts about Superman 2. Once again, I just want to thank everybody who has been supporting the channel, everybody that has been liking the video, commenting on the video, watching the video. I greatly appreciate it. And if you guys are not so already, make sure to go down there, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the bell notifications to make sure you get all my reviews, especially that I'm going to be cranking out a bunch of reviews this week and next week leading up for Superman. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get straight into my pros. And starting with my pros, I once again adore Christopher Reeves in this role. I think he has such a great character dynamic to the Superman character, where he's very charismatic, very charming, and even when he's in his like kind of Clark Kent secret identity form, the way he kind of just carries himself to be a little bit more nerdy and shy and kind of closed off, it just works so well in between the two. And I said it in my last review too, that I can understand why some people may, in the universe, I guess, will not notice that Superman is Clark Kent or vice versa, because of the way Superman carries himself versus how Clark Kent carries himself, even though they're the same person. Now, I do want to mention, because something just came up to my knowledge that I never really knew until just recently, but leading up to, of course, the new Superman with James Gunn, he had an interview mentioning that he talked to the creators of the comic books, and the glasses that Superman wears is actually hypnotizing glasses, so people don't notice that it's him. They're supposed to hypnotize him to make him look completely different, and that's canon in the universe in the comic book series. So I wonder if that's something that they knew making these movies, because as we'll get into it when it comes to the Lois Lane character in a little bit, which I'll talk about, it kind of makes sense that the glasses that he wears within these movies would be those hypnotizing glasses. Now, speaking about Lois Lane and the glasses, spoiler alert, I don't think I really necessarily need to be saying that this is a spoiler. This movie's, damn near 40 some years old, I think. But Lois Lane's character, I enjoy her a lot more in this movie as well, and her dynamic with Superman or Clark Kent and kind of their relationship that they kind of go between each other. You can definitely tell that she's a little bit nicer to Clark Kent than everybody else in this like news or like this kind of area that he works in, where they write newspapers and things like that, like all the journalists and stuff. She's probably the only one that actually ever acknowledges Clark Kent is actually nice to him, even though she's a little selfish in the way that she cares more about herself, that she wants to get the best story for herself and stuff like that. You still see she definitely has a friendship with Clark Kent, and I like how she slowly realizes in this movie, and especially because, like I mentioned before, I think the hypnotizing glasses is a great factor, is the one time he removes his glasses by accident, she has a realization as like, oh wait, this might be Superman. And I think that one moment in the movie when Clark Kent takes off his glasses and she realizes that kind of gives you clues that maybe the hypnotizing glasses are a thing within this franchise or within these movies. But beyond that, I just enjoy that plot point of Lois Lane learning that Clark Kent might be Superman and eventually finding out that he really is, and their relationship kind of going into that, and Superman being worried about her because there's obviously always going to be danger afoot, and him willing to give up his powers to be a normal person so they can have a normal relationship and things like that. So I just really enjoy the relationship between these two characters throughout the whole movie. It makes for a good like story and a good through line of Superman's kind of dilemma of trying to be the hero for everybody else, or even himself being a little bit selfish and kind of wanting to have a relationship with essentially the girl of his dreams. And these earlier Superman movies are just really fun in terms of like the way they are, the way they look, the way they're kind of shot, the design of each character. This definitely feels more like comic book-y, where it's a lot more colorful and vibrant, and characters are very bombastic and out there and stuff like that. We talked about that in the last one with like Lex Luthor and how Lex Luthor is and even how Superman is. This is not like in that dark DC era where everything has to be so menacing and dark and emotional, and we always say it's like the emo version for the DC universe. And a lot of DC comic books are in that kind of realm of being a little bit more darker than you would traditionally see like in a Marvel comic book, or for example. But I do like that we get a little bit more of that kind of comic booky aspect of it. It feels like more like the animated series and more vibrant and fun and enjoyable. Again, it's just not so dark and heavy emotion all the time. And I enjoyed the ending of this movie. The kind of like quick wits that Superman is using. He doesn't necessarily use his brute strength to defeat the enemy that it's at hand. He uses just his smarts and knowledge and knowing what might come to overcome these enemies that are at play in this movie. And even like with someone that he meets early in the movie, which I thought was a fun little ending to kind of conclude this movie on. He gets like his little comeuppance and everything like that. So that was really fun as well. And then also him and Lois Lane's kind of conclusion to this film, which I'll leave that out of it. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend this one. It's a really fun Superman movie, but throughout this entire movie, we've been learning that Lois Lane is learning who Superman really is and his true identity. And that ending, the way they kind of conclude it makes sense, and I like it. It doesn't feel like we lost much. It was just a great way to kind of show that Superman cares about Lois Lane and doesn't want her to get hurt, and what he has to sacrifice for himself to ensure that doesn't happen. And lastly, I'll say I enjoy the score. We obviously get that iconic Superman theme song and a couple of other, obviously score throughout the movie. But overall, I really, really enjoy the music in here. It definitely fits with the vibe. It definitely enhances what's going on screen. And again, it just makes for a very fun, enjoyable cinematic watch. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my cons. And start with my cons. Once again, I think a lot of the effects here have aged very, very poorly. And especially if these like newer cuts that we see here, like on streaming services, or even if you go and get like a Blu-ray or 4K, it makes the image a lot more crisp, and it also ends up showing you how dated these effects are, where you can definitely just tell it's an image and they just kind of cut and paste Superman flying through this image, and it ends up looking a little wonky or not as clean. So again, it's all, of course, because these are a little bit older movies and what they had available to them to make that shot seamless. But it does stick out like a sore thumb when you are watching the movie. The effects are being played at hand, especially even like when people are fighting, the way they get lifted up and stuff like that. It's all very like silly and kind of old school, where you can tell they didn't have the technology or the means to make these shots look more epic or have more of a smoother transition into these shots as well. And lastly, what I will say is I didn't really enjoy the enemies that were here at play. We are introduced to them in the first movie. They're like the three people that are at trial. We have General Zod, and I don't remember the other two's names because they don't really matter as much, versus General Zod. But I just didn't really enjoy them too much. I thought they were a little too goofy. I never felt that they were really menacing. Besides maybe General Zod, he's the only one that kind of has a little menacing nature to him. But even just his line delivery, the way he kind of presents himself, it does feel a little too goofy at certain aspects. And then you have like this one character who's meant to be like just a dumb, brooding one that really has no brains. It's just all muscle. So when you see someone like that, they don't really feel menacing. He doesn't even feel like a threat, especially like the way they're dressed. And again, the way they present themselves, it feels very goofy. It feels very like old school comic booky era, 100%, and which that is what it is. But again, it just doesn't age well. And the way the enemies are presented, it doesn't age well. And when it comes to like the final battle and stuff like that, it does end up being a little lackluster. And I was wanting more from three enemies that are seemingly supposed to have the same amount of powers as Superman. But that is going to be it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys thought about Superman 2. If you guys have seen it. If you haven't, I highly recommend it, especially leading up to the brand new James Gunn DC universe. This is very, very much a fun watch. And I know, just looking at online stuff, this seems to be another favorite in the old school Superman franchise. We're leading into some tough territory, so I'm worried about what we're going into, but I'm still very excited to continue on this series. Let me know what you guys are thinking about the Superman series. Also, let me know your excitement for the brand new James Gunn Superman coming in about a week. Love to hear your guys' thoughts about that in the comment section down below. But again, if you guys like talking about anything movie, TV show, video game later, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. Make sure that like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.